welcome to a new episode of Business Meets Live. And today is actually the fourth time that I'm trying to interview amazing Francis Kremer, but only because of IT issues. But Francis was like, you know what, Janine, I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm German. Time is more important. And he said, we're going to make it work. So thank you so much for being patient with me, for getting up early at 7:30 a.m. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Jenny. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, first of all, you have this super successful podcast. That's how everybody in China seems to know you nowadays. And you are interviewing a lot of Flexpats. Next to being a family man and a super successful expat yourself or businessman in China. Now, what exactly is a Flexpat?
Yeah, well, everybody knows expats, right? And the idea of the expat is somebody who gets sent to another country by his own organization. And this is usually time limited, so going back eventually. So what happened in China is that some people like this, they came to China and they decided to stay. And then the question was, well, how do you call such a person? Because he's not really being sent. He's in China, he's not a local, but he's also not really an expat. So somebody started this word, Flexpat. It's not me, it wasn't me. It was somebody else, long time ago. So when I pushed this, because I was a Flexpat from the beginning. So I decided, I tried to come to China for myself, and I tried to find a company to send me like an expat, but I wasn't really an expat. So I experienced this myself. So this is why I'm so strong on Flexpat.
Now tell me a little bit more on how you ended up in China and also like your last couple of years, because you have a lot of interesting stories to tell and a lot of great expertise.
Yeah, well, I came to China 20 years ago as a student to teach English. It was just a great adventure. And then I graduated from university and I really focused on China from the very beginning. So in university, I tried everything I could do to focus on China. But then I graduated and I started in technology sales in Germany. And then I got better and better and earned more money. And eventually it was very difficult to see, okay, how can I get back to China? Because now I was in Germany, I was helping American companies to enter the German market. So how can I scale this to China? Yes. So eventually I just thought, okay, forget it. I need to understand what I can do well and understand which kind of European companies could use this skill. Yeah. And then I focused on business development to say, European companies going to China to develop business, maybe they need somebody to be the bridge between Europe and China. And I positioned myself to be this person. But then again, the companies would say, well, then we take a Chinese person, not a European. So I tried to pitch. And then eventually I found one company, my last company, and they agreed and they sent me to China. And then I arrived in Austria. So I went to Austria for training in 2016. And then eventually arrived in Nantong, where I still live, in 2017. So this is 7 years ago.
But if I remember correctly, because we kind of started the introduction 4 times and 3 times I got interrupted by IT issues, right? Wasn't there also like a love story involved? It was not just about the job, if I remember correctly, how you ended up in China or stayed in China. Or am I wrong?
Yeah. So I met my first Chinese wife in 2003. And we got married in 2005 in Germany. So she was Chinese and she came to Germany as an au pair. And then we got to know there. And then she was attracted to Germany. I was attracted to China. So we always had this relationship. It was very interesting. And then eventually we, of course, we had the Chinese mother-in-law come to Germany a lot. And then we went to China for holidays. So I had a big attraction to China for this reason. Yeah. And then when we eventually came back to China, then I tried to, it was very interesting because I tried to jump into China full speed. And my first wife, she was like, she wanted to enter the German community, actually the community that I am in now, the kind of the Flexpats. And she was very attracted to that. And so we kind of went separate ways after that.
I see. Now, can we quickly talk about the different type of expats again? I mean, you and I, we both have also worked and interviewed Gabor Holsch, who has also done his own research about expats and how the type of expat is changing nowadays. Can you tell me a bit more about the different type of expats in China? And then, of course, people would love to know how can they actually still become an expat in China?
Well, Gabor has written a great book. I cannot put much more on that. So basically, an expat is somebody who takes expertise from one country to another. And in the past, this was mostly technology, often from Germany to China, from US to China. So techno engineers mostly. So today it's different because today the technology is, there's not a big gap. So the culture, there's a gap in the culture, in the way you process topics, the way sales is run, compliance and HR. There's lots of different areas. And of course, you could write this as a memo and then send over to China and then tell them, okay, get it done. It just doesn't work. So if today, if somebody wants to work as an expat in China, then the best way is to try to find out which company has a very strong culture in the headquarters and try to apply this culture in China. Or which Chinese company, that's what I do, which Chinese company is in China and they want to go overseas and they need somebody to apply the Chinese company culture to overseas without scaring away the customers. So trying to make the company attractive overseas, but still try to keep the Chinese DNA inside the company.
Yes. So thank you for that advice. And I think you have a very unique story to tell because, I mean, you're a foreigner who, in my opinion, from the outside, has fully integrated into the Chinese environment. You are super fluent in Chinese. You have even published a book where you basically help other people to easily and fast upskill their Chinese. You've integrated, you have a local wife, mixed children, you work for a Chinese company, and I think you are excelling from what I can see. Now, what's your key to that success or key to the successful integration? Because many foreigners that I know, they don't do that. Also, you live in a smaller city, not in the big ones.
Yeah, life comes as it comes. So for me, I always say my life is my wife, my family, and my boss. So I check my phone, and I check my phone mainly for my wife and my boss. Anything else, I don't care. So this is also an advice I can give to other people. So life is very simple. People make it very complicated, but actually it's very simple. You need to have your surrounding, your personal surrounding, and then you need to have some way to make a living, right? And for me, I tried to make Chinese priority. So I have a Chinese wife and a Chinese boss. This makes a lot easier. It doesn't have to be this way. It can also be another way. But if you make your life so complicated that your life is so filled up with lots of stuff, then you're not able to do this. And just again, because of my Chinese family, especially my Chinese son, he learns English now, but we only speak Chinese. So and because of the Chinese team, I work at a company with 500 people and about 20 speak English. So I usually work in English, but there's a lot of exposure to Chinese and all the meetings are Chinese, all memos are in Chinese, all emails are in Chinese, everything is in the WeChat groups, everything in Chinese. Yeah. So of course I can get out of this and I can say, well, I'm the foreigner, you talk to me in English, and actually they do. It's more than 70% is in English. But still, the exposure is very strong. And what can other people do to do this? Well, you need a family or kind of a lifestyle, and you can do this with anyone you want. You can be single, you can have a relationship. It's okay. But you need to know that the relationship will take away at least 50% of your energy. Yeah. So if you do this in a non-Chinese speaking environment, there's a big chance lost. The same as the job environment. So if you care about your boss and your job, then you know that there is not a lot of energy left outside your family, lifestyle, relationship, and the job. And if you work in China, and many of my network, your network, they do work in China, I think the chance is very high the opportunity is very high to get into a Chinese environment, but the opportunity is also very high to get outside the Chinese environment. So it's your own
Yes.
choice. And I choose the Chinese environment.
Mhm. Now, can you give us a summary of your book? I know it's a long book. It's very difficult to say that basically, but what are the key or few key takeaways? Don't spoil too much, of course, on how we can also like up level our Chinese fast. What has worked for you well beyond of what you have already shared?
But I said again the same way. So learning Chinese is a lifelong project. And
Yeah.
people who manage it are usually the people who decide to learn Chinese in university. So when they're 18 or 19, they go to university, they do 5 years and they learn. So the whole learn Chinese system is influenced by this approach. So there's basically two strong approaches towards learning Chinese. The one approach is a professor like me, 40 years old, teach Chinese and teach, I learned this way, you have to follow me, learn the same way. And it works, but only if you focus on it for 5 years in university. So then you can become a professional reading, writing, everything. So now the problem is that somebody who tries to learn Chinese gets this target, okay? I have to do it everything. So then they have the other world, which are the native speakers. And there is a big, like a whole army of native speakers, teachers who all have their own idea how to speak Chinese and how to learn Chinese, but actually 99% just idiots because they don't know, they don't know how to learn Chinese. They just speak Chinese because they're natives, but they don't know how to, and they also don't have success stories. If you ask them, show me your student, show me one student who can speak Chinese fluently. They can't. They don't have they don't have success stories normally. Of course, there's exceptions, but so this is why in the book, Sophia, the main author, and me, so we focused on the idea. Well, what are your options? Well, if this is the problem, you have the career Chinese people and you have the natives, and then you're kind of stuck in the middle. And what is your option to do it? And we believe in self-study. So the best way is to focus on self-study and to build your own 5-year plan in order to reach fluency. Now, the problem is if you do this by yourself, then nobody will motivate you. So you need to have your own discipline to do this. And also you need to build a process. So also here, we explain a lot how to build a process to learn Chinese. And I have my own advice that I always share, which is try to analyze where Chinese is difficult, characters and pronunciation, reading, and try to analyze where Chinese is easy. For example, the grammar. Grammar is very easy. The speaking is actually quite easy. So focus on what is really easy. And then for me, the best advice is focus on verbs. Verbs, adjectives, those are below 200 words and you can learn them in 4 weeks if you want. It's very easy.
Wow.
And then you're able to express yourself with very simple ingredients. Just like you can cook a very difficult meal, but you can also do pasta with red sauce. You know, it's very simple. It's also okay.
This is wonderful advice. And this is actually super motivating now that you told me this. I think I have an action task for the next 4 weeks. Less than 200 words like verbs and adjectives. That sounds so doable, actually. It doesn't sound so scary anymore. And having written a book with Sophia Javier myself, I have to say she is amazing. You have a great partner on your side. Yeah, I'm motivated. Thank you for that. So my next question would be, let's talk about your leadership philosophy. I mean, you are originally from Germany. I see how you have integrated into the Chinese culture and the work environment. There's like, you're the only foreigner, right? And you basically have worked for an American company before. If you weren't successful, you would not have come in such a high position in a Chinese company. So what's your leadership philosophy?
Basically, it's like this. In a Chinese company, you have a lot of chaos. There is no clear process. Everything is so. At the same time, you have a very strong vision on the top. So there's a leader who says, "Oh, we go there. Okay, we will be the market leader." Pam. And then you say, "Well, how is that possible?"
Yes.
Well, how is it possible you have such a chaos and then you have a target? So what we Germans know is that you take such a plan and then you break it down in smaller processes. You don't just have one big plan, but you also have smaller plans and smaller plans and smaller plans. So this is something which I apply, and it's very difficult because it means that every person in the team needs to have one special area where she or he focus on, and needs to be able to focus on it without distractions. But again, the Chinese system is full of distractions. There's always something going on. There's always a meeting and always a customer. And so what I try to do is to kind of apply the big vision and then break it down to every individual contributor, and then give every individual contributor one area to focus on, and then kind of protect her from the buzz going on. And this has worked well for me. It also has worked well for me that I don't have to do this myself. So in China, if you're a sales director, it means you're a sales guy.
Yeah.
So you're just the top sales guy. But I don't believe in this. I believe I'm the leader. So my job is to make sure that the sales guys can sell. But then the Chinese guys, they will say, what the hell is he doing? He's just sitting there doing some Excel. That's no job. There's no value. So that's also, I have to protect myself. That people don't say, well, it's useless. But at the other hand, is the Chinese way is because people, they always do everything themselves. Then they don't have time to lead or build a strategy. So this is maybe a bit difficult to follow, but basically for me, what I say is you need to take a big plan, break it down into separate processes, but then really make sure that the members on your team, they have the chance to execute and concentrate on this and not just be distracted.
That is amazing advice. So nowadays I get more and more clients for trainings who are actually foreigners from Europe, Latin America, from Northern America, and they work for Chinese companies. So sometimes they're being sent to China for like a couple of trainings to get to know the company better, or partly I even train them like abroad. So I know that this is a different case, but you have interviewed in your podcast so many people. Would you have some advice for these foreigners outside of China who now work for a Chinese company abroad? How do they become successful? How do they integrate well? I know that this is a different case.
So the Chinese system is very hierarchical. So there's a leader on the top and there's a very long chain of command. So there's lots of people who are some managers and then there's lots of basic people. So what Chinese companies usually do is they have one or two top guys and they talk to the foreigners abroad. And all the other 500 guys are kind of closed box. You cannot integrate. It's a black box. No. So my first advice would be try to open that box. So try to figure out, okay, there's a company in China, they have 500 people. So who is there beyond these two top guys? Who is there? Who is the sales manager? Who is the sales assistant and the assistant of the general manager and the HR manager and so on? So the problem is that they don't speak English, at least not everyone. But you will find at least 20 people who can speak English. And if you build a relationship with them, then it will give you more information, because in China, the information is power. If you have the information, you have power. But if you don't, the top guys, they will only give you what you need, what they think you need. So you have a very limited amount of information. But if you extend your network in the company, you get more information. So this would be the top advice I would give.
But how can they now build up a relationship once they have opened that kind of box? Because most of the time they don't ever meet. They basically, it's a virtual work environment.
Well, I always ask for help. So just find a way to ask for help. You have a contract and then you ask somebody to stamp the contract. And then it's very complicated. You have to talk to each other 20 times to understand what the terms of the contract and so on. This builds a relationship. The same with everything else. The photo guy, take the photo, then try to learn about the Photoshop and whatever. So there's just try to show interest in this person's work. And you can do that by asking for help in a way that you show respect for what this person is doing. But you also try to actually get help. So it will be a conflict because people say, why should I help this guy? Yeah, but if this is a good thing in the Chinese company, if the top guys, if they support you, then the other guys, they know that it's good to help you. It's a good investment to help you. So the key which is missing is why this communication doesn't work between the foreigner and the Chinese. It's because nobody's taking the first step. So if you go first and you ask for help, and then this other person will say, should I help him or not? Well, the chance is high that they will say, well, we'll try. Who knows? Maybe there will be some profit for me in the future. And this is what I say. If you analyze the Chinese system, then it means it's like a big chain of command. There's one top guy have a very high salary, and there's a lot of low guys have very low salaries. So basically, if you have the chance to enter the workforce, and if you ask them for help, then they know that you are in a relationship with the top guy. So they will probably see that if they build a relationship with you, it will also help them. So I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but this is how I work.
Yeah, this is very good advice. And especially you said, somebody has to do the first step. I mean, you can probably not lose anything by doing the first step. Try it out, right? You can only win from it. Which brings me to the next question of what do you think has been your biggest failure in the recent years since you probably live and work in China? And this could be something like in private life or in work life, if you don't mind me asking.
No, there's lots of failures. So basically, when I came to China, I didn't understand that my communication style is very tough, very strong towards clarity. So I try to create clarity because this is how I grew up in Germany. When you don't understand, it's your fault. So you have to push until you understand, until everybody understands what you want.
Yeah.
In China works differently. In China, it's harmony. So in China, everything has to work together somehow. So this for me was actually my first job in Nantong. It was not a total failure, but the whole way how I communicated in the company was not very professional. So I was asking for help, but I was not offering anything in return. And I didn't have a relationship with the top guy. So the people say, why he asked me for help, but what's the value for me? So there's a lot I could have done differently. But I didn't have a coach. This is why I'm doing the podcast, to explain this to other people who try to follow.
So now you took my other question on how you have started your podcast and why you have started it. Is there anything else you still wanted to add on this?
Yes. The podcast is a very efficient way of sharing information. It's cheap to produce. You just need an online meeting and a microphone. And it's easy to consume. So it's possible to consume it for 10 years, 20 years, because podcasts, we never know how long it's going to stay around, but it's probably like YouTube. It's never going to go off. So the biggest problem is how can people find the correct episode? So this is something I just thought, okay, if it's like this, so the problem of the podcast is that there's not enough dopamine. There's not enough push going on. There's no addiction. It's not like a series on Netflix. So you have to make the decision. I want to listen to a podcast. I want to learn. But then, so I cannot do this. I cannot influence my audience to say, I want to learn from Francis. Everybody has to make this own decision. My decision is I want to make it available. That is possible. So if somebody wants to learn from me, they can. It's possible. And it's cheap. There's no cost. It's only time. involved.
Yeah.
And this is why I started the podcast, because I believed it's the best format to build sustainable content over a long time, and then try to really to build a community around this podcast of know-how and thought leadership.
And I really have to say, you've built up an impressive community all over China. I think this year you are hosting like at least 8 different events, but not just in one city. No, I think this Thursday we have Kunshan coming up. You had Suzhou several times, also Shanghai, and which other cities are coming up?
Hangzhou. We have Hangzhou, Jiaxing, yeah. And then in the summer, now we will have one more event in Shanghai in June, and then in the September, I think we have Taizang, and then Jiaxing, yeah.
Yeah, and these cities are kind of close by, but I remember when I came to your Shanghai one, you had more than 100 people, and it was super impressive. You've done a huge job in managing family, your job, the podcast, which is not little time. I know that myself. Thanks again for having me on your podcast as well. So do you have a mentor or a coach yourself? Because earlier when you said like learning Chinese, it takes a lot of like self discipline, or you kind of like from your expertise, you suggested you better do it yourself. You have your own plan and then you just do it. But there's so many things that you have to learn or that you have to be on top. So yeah, do you have coaches and mentors that you invest in, or how do you manage it?
Yeah, so I always try to use every relationship I have in my life like a coaching relationship. So I don't have long-term coaches, which I work with for, let's say, 10 years. But I try to, every time, I still remember when I started this job in Nantong, the last job, then I was hired by a seasoned top manager, like an Austrian top manager, like you can imagine. He was in the company for 30 years and he knows everything. So when I joined this company, I thought, okay, I want this guy to be my coach. But how do you do this? I mean, he's the boss, and how do you do this? But he's my coach, so I'm still working with him today. So it was difficult, really difficult to do this because it's a big company and a very strict hierarchy. I just showed interest, and yeah, I still have this. And now I'm also trying to use everybody I work with as a coach, and I ask for feedback and to learn from, and also especially in the Flexpat community. So I found this current job, this job here in Jiaxing. I found this because I was I found somebody on a conference who was kind of similar to me, a Flexpat. And then I connected with him and I tried to apply him like a coach and learn from him. And then I was deciding I need to leave the company. I want to find a new job. I reached out to him and then he really helped me a lot and introduced me to several headhunters. And this is how I found this job. So I believe a coach is not necessarily one person. It's just, I think it's an attitude that you believe other people can help you, but you have to ask for help and you have to show respect in order to get it. This is how I do it.
And I think you're absolutely a role model when it comes to your growth mindset, your leadership style, how you've integrated here in China. So enough about talking about work. Let's talk about love. A lot of my foreign clients and friends here in China, they are married to local wives now, and they have mixed kids. And I mean, the German or American culture or French culture versus Chinese culture, it's quite different, especially also when it comes to the communication style. I'm wondering now, do you have some advice on how you can make such a culturally different relationship or also the family life work? Because here in China we have a lot of like family rules. The family plays a huge a role in China, which we Germans I think are not really used to compared to like maybe Indians or Greek people.
Well, the first thing I always like to say is that life is complex. So you can make your own decision how you want to live and who you want to live with. So I said before that I try to build a balance between harmony and clarity. I have a very strong demand for clarity. This is my personality. And this is also my strengths, that I try to make everything clear, sometimes too tough, but it's my strengths. But I also believe that people need harmony. They need to feel that they belong together. So it's a lot of feeling, and it's also important. So what I did when I met my wife is that I expressed my needs in a very clear way, not in a very harmony way. So basically, I said, this is how I live. I'm the German guy in China. I don't spend any money. I have a very simple lifestyle and enjoy this. And I just need somebody to spend time with. You know, I don't want to leave this or change this. I can change, but I don't want to be kind of pulled out of this and into some other life. And so for her, this was very interesting. And then we spent maybe 6 months just like that. Never spent money, just have a very simple life. It was nice. So of course, this is not sustainable. It doesn't work forever. So you make some decisions sometimes, and it's okay. But basically, it means that they respect me for the way that I live. So, and this is what I see in many international relationships, is that they don't do this. So they just say, okay, well, we belong together, and now you have your needs and I have my needs, and we have to follow each other. But it's not necessarily true. So you can build your own life and you can ask for respect. So we're married for 2 years, but we still don't live together. So I have my own life. And this is ridiculous. I mean, I go backpacking for 3 weeks, and which wife would accept this? This is how we live. This is what we do. And my wife runs her own company, and yeah, it's a decision. So the conflict that I often see is that foreigners living in China are high performers. So they have high salary, they have high income, they have also maybe do sports and whatever. So very competitive. And then the Chinese partner is kind of, it now sounds very bad, but kind of trying to jump into this higher level. So trying to have this international partner to climb up into this high performance lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I don't do this. I don't accept this. So I said, this is my life and you have your life and I want to join your life. I don't want you to join my life. I mean, of course, it's kind of both, but it's not just, okay, this is my life, you can join me, but then I will make you happy so that you stay. No, I don't do this. This is, it's very complicated, but this is my philosophy. It's a give and take, and it means that I need to have my lifestyle and my wife needs to have her lifestyle. And it's nice that I can experience her lifestyle, and it's nice that she can experience my lifestyle. And if you concentrate on this, on what is nice, then it's always possible to make something work together. We've never had a fight. So I'm very direct. I do what I need to do, but if she has a requirement, if she wants something, then I will do it. It's very simple. So it's my priority to kind of also to make this possible to live together.
Wow, thank you so much for letting us in, even in your private life, for sharing these things. I really appreciate it. What would you say is some kind of advice that you wish you would have gotten at an earlier stage in your life or career?
What I always tell everybody is, now I'm 40. So I always tell everybody, imagine people who are younger than me, I say, imagine what you want to do when you're 40, what kind of life you want to have. And then just take some time to express this. And when you would have asked me 20 years ago, I would have said, I want to be a top manager in China. 100%. Maybe not 20 years ago, but 25 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago. So, and then I say, I'll do it today. So It doesn't have to be 40. It can also be 50 or 60. It's okay. But basically, if you think about a lifestyle goal, then don't accept that this goal is so far away. Because you can be a top manager if you build your own company, then you're a top manager. You can also be a top manager in a small company. You can also, there's many ways to do without waiting 15 years to get there.
Yeah.
So I don't like, there's so many targets that I was following in the past, like financial independence, early retirement and stuff. To me, this is bullshit, because it means now I work hard, and when I'm 40, I can retire, and then I will go to Thailand and relax. And I don't believe in this anymore. So because it means that life is, it's not, we say life is a journey, but actually it's not. It's a moment that we have today. So, and today I share my story the past 40 years. Okay. This is just a story. It's not even true. It's just a story. And the future, what happens after this is just a dream. So maybe it will work. Maybe it doesn't. So the only thing we really have is the current moment. So if I would have wanted one key advice, is then it's really to say, not just the voodoo blah blah, but to enjoy your life, but really to say, what do you want? And then to get it now and not in 20 years. Not work hard for something to get something in 20 years. It's bullshit. No, you have to get it today. It's now. Because there's a very low chance that you're going to get it in 20 years. The chance is extremely low. So better if you get it today, even if it's not as good as you want to have it. It's much better than if you get it in 20 years.
Speaking to you is super inspirational. I've gotten to see you from a different side than just like from online. And at least luckily we met one time in person. Now, to sum that up now, why have you decided to come join me on my podcast, even after we have experienced a couple of IT issues?
I think it's great. So what you do is to help other people to imagine where they can go and learn from others about success. I think it's great. And if I can support this, I'm really happy to do this. And if somebody wants to call me or ask for something else, you can share all my contact details. I'm always happy to share.
Thank you. So yes, how can people reach out to you, or who should reach out to you?
Well, I try to go into all different areas. So my key area is I want to be the guy between Germany and China. So maybe next time the Chancellor Scholz will come to China, I want to guide him. You know, this is my dream. I want to be the one between the cultures. So anyone interested in this should contact me. But I also do many other stuff. I take the Chinese company to Europe. So there's lots of this. I'm now trying to better understand Hungary, because we invest in Hungary and then from there go to Europe. So I'm really strong on sales. I'm an EV guy. So I have a lot of different interests. So you can try, anyone can try to find something which is where we have a common interest. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Francis. And I also hope that more people will start listening to your Flexpat podcast and will get your book through Amazon, and the contact details will be attached. Thanks for your time. Have an amazing day. And guys, remember to start taking action. What was this one thing that you have just learned that was a game changer, or you got an aha moment? Start taking action. And if you like today's podcast, please share it with your friends or family and colleagues. Have a good day.